Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. I'm sure all of you remember 26/11. I'm sure all of you remember the anguish, the shock, the horror, the anger on the streets, the cries of enough is enough, the statements saying that we will never allow this to happen again, the questions that were being asked, how did we allow things to come to this path? All those documents and pages and pages that came out saying, here are the things that went wrong, here is how terrorists were able to strike at the heart of Mumbai, and we will now make sure it never happens again. Well, it hasn't really happened again at that level, but have we really learned the appropriate lessons? Is there the actual institutional, infrastructural changes that were required to prevent another such attack? Have those changes been made? Well, here on The Big Fight, we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to look at the Pakistan factor. We saw those cold vibes at SARC before the final handshake. What is the message that should be going out to Pakistan now on the question of terrorism and other issues? And specifically, can an attack like Mumbai happen again, and have we learned the lesson? So a panel joining us, Praveen Swami, who's one of the people who's done a lot of work on this, National Editor, Strategic and International Affairs at the Indian Express. Pleasure and a privilege, sir, to have you with us. Mr. J.K. Dutt, who's a former DG NSG. We all remember him from 26/11, the person who was actually involved in getting those terrorists out of there. Have we learned the lessons is the question we're going to be asking you, as indeed we are going to be asking Mr. A.V. Karnik, former Deputy Director of the IB. We are going to get a range of other voices also as we go along. Manas Ghosh is joining us from Kolkata. We have joining us from Islamabad, Air Vice Marshal Shehzad Chaudhry, Strategic Affairs Expert. And Kia Sher is going to be joining us also, who runs a peace initiative, One Life Alliance Trust, lost her husband and her daughter in those terrible Mumbai attacks. We also have with us Nalin Kohli, a spokesperson of the BJP, and Rashmikant, leader of the Congress Party, to give us a sense of, if we haven't done enough so far, what can be done to try and move forward. Praveen, if I could just maybe start with you, because you've done some work on this, and I was struck by some of your writings just a couple of days back. And I want to put up some graphics for all of you. And these are graphics that actually were fairly alarming to me, and I'm sure they're alarming to all of you. Let's look at areas like coastal security. Interceptors procured, yes. But untrained cops to patrol boats, nothing done about that. US-made jet engines foul up frequently, nothing done about that. Spare parts hard to find, nothing done about that. Boats have design defects, nothing done about that. Phase 2 patrol boats yet to arrive, so cross out there, no training center for marine police. Let's move on. Look at Mumbai. Yes, 150 crore rupees have been spent on new speed boats, but the fleet is grounded due to a lack of spare parts. Yes, there's a 6 crore explosive scanner, but it's not functioning. Yes, all-terrain bikes have been purchased, but they are unused. Yes, anti-material rifles have been purchased, but those rifles have not been fired since acquisition. There's no rifle practicing range. Purchase of equipment is mired in corruption. No bulletproof jackets, or hardly any. Bid for CCTVs cancelled thrice. No bulletproof jackets for firemen. No clearance for electronic equipment for the control room. 6 years later, the control room building is now finally approaching construction.
Without the woodwork.
Are these statistics that should really be causing a fair degree of alarm?
Yes, they
and
should.
Are there others like this, for example? I mean, are we any way closer to being prepared than we were?
Look, I think most of our urban police forces anyway, and some states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, are doing fantastic work within the constraints they've got. But we need to underline that sentence, within the constraints they've got. The fact of the matter is our training facilities are awful. Problems with training are built into the system because the finest people, as other experts like Mr. Dutt will be able to tell you, generally don't want to go into training. Courses and curricula in most of these services are outdated. There's a shortage of money for things like bullets. A Mumbai cop today, 5 times better than 26/11, but he fires 30 bullets once a year for training. 30 shots once a year.
30 shots once a year.
Once a year. By contrast, a policeman in any Western force would fire thousands every year. You can't learn by firing 30 shots at a static target once a year. And this is true across the country. So after 26/11, lots of big talk, big plans, but no attention to the real detail, to the real problems. And fixing this is going to take that attention to detail.
Let me turn then to Mr. Dutt. Sir, but you are aware of all the problems you faced. If an attack like that was to happen again today, would your successor be in a better position than you are? And if so, by how much?
Let me put it like this. You see, when I was the DG, we had certain equipment in the NSG. and we trained with that. And we had all our tactics and strategies worked out on that basis. But today, if you ask me this question, whether we are in a better position, I can only say from what I have seen in the market and in the news is, if for example, I had a thermal imaging contraption, with that I would not have spent so much time trying to check each and every room to see if anyone was inside. If a room was locked, we had to try and open it either with a master key or use a small charge to blast open the door, because we couldn't move our action groups forward and have somebody open the room the door from behind and the terrorists shoot my men. I couldn't afford that. So if I had the thermal imaging, probably the time taken would have been much less. If I had one of those throw balls which has a video cameras on it, you throw it into any room, and with a remote control you can control its movement. You can see what is inside. If we had that sort of a thing, probably we would have been able to locate the terrorists much faster. Now, these are new things. Do we have these now? I retired 5 years ago. I do not know, because you see, the special forces are very secretive about their tactics and strategies.
Praveen, on the question of equipment specifically, is it better than it was then or not enough?
Somewhat better, but there are again huge deficits. Take the case of Force 1, Mumbai's NSG equivalent force, if you like. They've got some fabulous equipment, but as you just mentioned, their anti-material rifles, they don't have a range to train on. They were promised land in Goregaon, where they would have a full campus. 6 years on, they still don't have it, because there's squatters on the land the Maharashtra government gave them. And you know what land litigation in this country is like, it's endless. To fire, they have to travel to Pune, because there's no firing range in the city for them to use. And at the range, the Mumbai police has been using to train its men on Kalashnikov firing, not rocket science. The local community started protesting because a few bullets went astray, which will happen on a firing range now and again. So they've stopped training people in Kalashnikov fire routinely. This kind of thing is just nonsense. It happens nowhere in the world.
In fact, taking a cue from that, and with all the no's which you started, this has not been done, this has not been done, we don't have that. You know, I would like to mention one thing, and I think that is something which any administration of the government needs to consider. Have the systems and procedures since 2008 been changed or not? If we are following the same procedures and systems, if the mindset of the people is the same, then I'm afraid we haven't made much progress. Getting a lot of equipment is not enough. Yes, as he has rightly pointed out, training has to be there.
The reason those spare parts aren't bought is because Directors General of Police don't have the authority to purchase anything worth over $1 lakh. Now, if you get this combat boat in here, which you've bought for, crores from abroad, the spark plugs are going to cost more than $1 lakh. I mean, the seats on these boats cost $1,34,000. Unless you empower officials to actually make these purchases, it's a common sense thing. You buy a car, you have money to buy spare parts for it. The file does the rounds of some bureaucrats, someone's terrified there's going to be a corruption inquiry, there's a tender, a retender, somebody goes to court, and the boats gather junk. That's just what's happening with all the equipment across the board.
And here
so equipment, training, you wanted to add something?
Systems and procedures, yes.
And
what he has mentioned becomes systems and procedures, because very important, because most of the equipment which we are using in the forces is being imported. So that means we must have a lot of spare parts. And now 5 years down the line, one cannot say, oh, those spare parts are lying, they have not been used, they were not utilized, it's a waste of money. We have to keep that in mind.
All right, fair enough. Mr. Karnik, we've touched on equipment, we've touched on training, we've touched on procedures. What about intelligence? Because at the end of the day, I was seeing this interview with the former head of Mossad when he came in and looked at the situation in India, and he said one of the real problems is you can't start dealing with a terrorist attack after that. Once the terrorists have started to fire, you should have had the intelligence. You should figure out what to do about it before. You should try and nip them in the bud. Has our intelligence gathering, intelligence infrastructure improved dramatically or not yet?
Any terrorism, anti-terrorism fight has 3 layers, really speaking. Intelligence is the first layer. Whether we are good at it or not, I don't know. On the ground, you will never know about intelligence, because intelligence comes to notice only which fails. When it succeeds, we do not hear about it, we don't know about it. So intelligence preparedness, I would not be able to comment. But what has happened is that there is a lot of cooperation and coordination amongst international intelligence agencies, and we get information and we pass on intelligence. So there is a lot of cooperation which is of great help, because Now it is an international fight that is taking place. So we require that kind of cooperation with the international agencies, and that is happening. MAC, that is the multi-agency center in Delhi, is doing that. NCTC was supposed to do it, but NCTC was not approved. After intelligence comes the prevention of terrorists from reaching their targets. There is physical obstruction that is done through the CCTV cameras, electronic surveillance, even something like Nakabandi, etc., etc. How good we are at it, how bad we are at it, because our boats are not operating, whether we can physically prevent from their reaching us again, that is to be seen. The third level is when they really attack the target. How then the first two layers have already failed and they have attacked us. We are all talking about equipment to prevail over the attackers. Attackers have already attacked us, that means we have failed basically, and now we are trying to kill them as early as possible. As it happened in Mumbai, it took maybe 62 hours to kill them. Now we are thinking of energy, special forces, etc., how effective they will be if the terrorists reach the target. But if they reach the target, we have halfway failed, really speaking. I will come to a general picture of our preparedness. We have grandiose plans, very good plans, we lay out money and things like that, but about implementation of plans we are very weak. That is perhaps our national character. Now, for example, we decided to have CCTV cameras in Mumbai in 2009, and so far the CCTV cameras have already been set up. Why? That is the problem. It should have been set up in 2009. They have not been set up.